It's 12 o'clock. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The top stories. President Bola Tinubu reaffirms Nigeria's commitment to the implementation of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NATI. $50 million World Bank funding for the construction of 1,200 mini-grids in Nigeria. Details coming up shortly. Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to the governing board of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Tinubu, who was however represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, who also chairs the new NATI board, said transparency in the extractive sector as well as prudent management of Nigeria's resources was central to his administration's economic agenda and anti-corruption policies. He emphasized that NATI's non-partisan nature, calling on members of the National Stakeholders Working Group to conduct themselves according to the initiative's standards that define the function of the working group to be focused on policy and oversight, not day-to-day management. Now, the federal government is set to review policies governing the implementation of a national blockchain policy. This was disclosed by the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, Kashifu Inuwa, at a three-day co-creation workshop for the implementation of a national blockchain policy in Abuja. Inuwa said the review is part of efforts to incorporate new emerging technologies and economic realities, expanding its reach to land registration, health, and education sectors. Reports say the three-day policy discussion is to validate trends in blockchain technology and incorporate new stakeholders for inclusive adoption. Chief Operating Officer Dr. Emmanuel Shotande has alleged that some lawyers help criminal-minded people invest and conceal their clients between the NBA and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in fighting corruption, terrorism, financing, and other fraud-related matters. He also advised lawyers to be diligent in their dealings with politically exposed persons. On his part, the NBA president, Yakubu Mekio, SAN, urged lawyers to observe the NBA anti-money laundering guidelines, Rules of Professional Conduct 2023, in handling financial and money laundering matters. Mekio charged lawyers to stay at the forefront of fight on them. Now let's talk politics, as the All Progressives Congress has dismissed potential major talks between the People's Democratic Party, a presidential candidate in the 2023 general election, Atiku Abubakar, and that of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. The APC said this in a statement issued through it as desperate politicians who could not be trusted with power. The ruling party also said it had no doubt the meeting between the two opposition candidates would amount to nothing, saying it was being fueled by a mutual desperation to ensure President Bola Tinubu did not return to office in 2027. The APC maintained that it was unclear whether Obi would be willing to return to the PDP or whether the latter would agree to dump his party to seek rehabilitation in the Labour Party. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, members of the organized private sector and economists express fear over the latest hike in interest rate. We'll bring you details of this and more in a moment. Do join us again. All right, welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, this is news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Now, the federal government has approved $750 million World Bank funding for the construction of 1,200 mini-grids in rural communities across Nigeria. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Rural Electrification Agency, Abba Aliyu, disclosed this while addressing newsmen at the Alliance for Rural Electrification Energy Access Forum. The fifth MPC meeting in Abuja. At the March MPC meeting, the benchmark rate had been increased by hawkish stance since it resumed meetings this year in a bid to tackle Nigeria's persistent inflation. Well, as of April, Nigeria's inflation rate had risen to 33.69%. Well, in the meantime, the meeting on the ongoing negotiations on new minimum wage has been adjourned till today after the organized labor rejected the new 54,000 naira minimum wage proposal by the federal government. The federal government offer from its earlier proposed 48,000 naira to 54,000 naira. Tuesday's meeting came as a result of the walkout staged by members of the organized labor following the proposal of 48,000 naira as minimum wage by the federal government during last week's meeting. During that meeting, the organized private sector had 1,000 naira living wage demand. Organized labor on Monday reiterated its May 31st, 2024 deadline for the implementation of the new minimum wage. The national president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, insisted on 615,000 naira minimum wage, arguing that the amount was arrived at after an analysis of the current economic situation and the needs. The sector and economists have expressed fear over the latest hike in the nation's benchmark interest monetary policy rate by the Monetary Policy Committee, saying the decision could significantly hamper economic operators' ability to repay their loans. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olaimi Cardoso, who doubles as the chairman of the MPC, announced the hike in interest rate at the end of its meeting yesterday. Reports say that Tuesday's MPR hike makes it the third consecutive rise in the benchmark interest rate this year. Therefore, on a news analysis, a comparative analysis of the hike in interest rate plus the unending minimum wage negotiation between the federal government and the organized labor and also the impact.
Good afternoon, Nigeria.
Right. Starting off with the Apex Bank, is the hike in interest rate an indication that previous analysis did not have any bite on the CBN and also the governor of the Apex Bank?
Of course, yes. The bank has insisted in increasing monetary policy rate since February, and that also consistently continued to assist inflation to grow. If you check from February figure to May figure, you realize that inflation is sitting 33.67%, which is very, very high. In fact, it is all-time high rate that has been witnessed in an economy of any emerging system.
Right. Usually, how has the consistent hike in interest rates impacted economic growth? Let's put the inflation rate aside. How has this, impacted the economy?
The growth process is slow, and it will continue to be slow because consumption is being reduced. The consumption is reduced as a result of eroding of purchasing powers of consumers by different financial policies from the bank that has been experienced as a result of volatility of the international market, as well as insecurity situation that is hampering production of food crops in Nigeria and distribution. You may also wish to understand that the bank has tried as much as possible to relate the year-on-year growth of the inflation and also to compare the month-on-month growth of the inflation, citing an example of an improvement. But when you check the last year, May last year, inflation was just 22.22%. If you compare that headline with the headline that which also make the growth process very slow.
Right. Yesterday, when this news broke, I had a conversation with your colleague, who is also an economist, one Adefolari Olamileko, and I'm sure you know him. And he said the hike in interest rate, there are some significant, results or impact, if you like, that it has actually, brought on the economy. He talked about its impact on foreign portfolio investment, but he also went further to say that the gains are quite insignificant as opposed to, the losses or how it has affected the economy, adversely. Now let's talk about what
level that you have to celebrate as a result of hiking the interest rate for FDIs. One thing that you look into is the prosperity of the consumers is in an economy. If the prosperity is positive, then it means policies are adjusting people's life, and also they are also adjusting their consumption level. But in a situation where you are speaking of FDI, when the economic environment is not secured, even this morning there has been report in Plateau Jos that there has been an attack. So no matter how you attract foreign direct investment into the economy, it's not going to be dissociated from being a factor for development. You can. But when you look at the general efficiency of the economy, when you look at the general prosperity of the economy, and you look at the policies, you now relate it to the fact that this increase, this hike, is not yielding good results because investors are not taking new funds, and if they are not taking new funds, they are translating whatever hike in their goods and services in terms of price increase, and that is also why we have inflation growing, the figures growing, and people's income being eroded.
Right. Will it be intelligent to say that the CBN governor is ill-informed? And also, what is obtainable in other climes? I mean, when you look at central banks across other nations.
No central bank has a history of hiking rate sequentially, as we have seen in the case of Central Bank of Nigeria. You raise the MPR by 400 basis in February. You raise it again by 200 basis point in February, and subsequently you now raise it with 150 basis point, 1.5 only. So when you have this scenario, it is showing that there has been consistency from the side of the bank using conventional approach for an unconventional situation, because the situation in the economy, conventionally the CBN may be right, but unconventionally the situation is not encouraging at all. If you take the number of people that are out of production, especially the agri output, now nobody can now, based on the releases of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, it shows that there is high inflation on food items, meaning that either the supply bottlenecks is causing the hike in the prices that resulted to the high inflation, or there are other factors that even influence the situation on ground.
Usually, how long do you see the CBN, maintaining this aggressive hike in interest rate?
So far as they sustain the hiking in price, prove to itself that they have the right to increase the MPR in their MPC meeting, but also the Nigerian people will continue to face the problem of rising inflation, which is making more people poorer, which is making more businesses to close, which is also not helping the democracy to continue to sustain itself.
Right, before we talk about what this will portend for the average Nigerian on the streets, just this morning, I think on one of the national dailies, we saw that, the instability at the currency market, is most likely going to trigger the price of diesel coming from Dangote refinery, which was earlier slashed. And we know, of course, that is most likely going to affect, the transportation of goods, farm produce, if you like, indirectly, translating to further hike in the prices of foodstuff and other essentials. How would you speak to that?
No, it has been a trend that how do you conclude that your policies are yielding results? And remember, I always say that the central bank need to understand that it is its own primary responsibility to stabilize prices. And if you cannot stabilize the cost of borrowing, definitely you cannot stabilize the prices of the output, and that is the scenario. What that portends to this economy is, like I said initially, we will continue to face hardship, people continue to lose jobs, people continue to eat with a very high price, and many people cannot even afford to be eating because the price is eroding their income, and therefore once you don't have income, you don't have any alternative rather than to be a victim of the situation.
All right. Now, on the flip side, let's now, critically analyze the controversy or the back and forth between the organized labor and the federal government. Just yesterday, of course, we understand that they are going to come back to the drawing board today again to further negotiate, what, would be decent enough for the average Nigerian worker. From 48,000 naira or thereabout to 54,000 naira, the federal government is gradually shifting grounds, but NLC has, maintained its 615,000 naira minimum wage proposal. Would it be right to say that the federal government is unbothered about NLC or TUC's looming strike action?
That proposing 615,000 as minimum wage is not realistic at all. Government also must understand that paying 54,000 naira when inflation quadruples is not also realistic for minimum welfare to the Nigerian people. Therefore, I am thinking that all avenues must be used to make sure that a striking balance is achieved to bring a friendly or handsome amount that will be appreciated by the public, will be appreciated by the workers, and will be appreciated by the economy.
When you say a handsome amount, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Are we looking at 100,000 naira?
Any income is handsome income, but what I am relating is the fact that labor demanding 615,000 is not realistic. Looking at the size of the workforce, looking at the investment of private sector to the Nigerian worker, is a handsome package to be respected and to be appreciated for the Nigerian workforce.
Well, for one, the best way to sum up all of these issues would be to say that the issues on ground are hydra-headed. But in all of this, is there hope for the average man on the street in the days to come?
The average man on the street has a hope. There is a hope for him. But what is more important is for the general public to understand that there is need for every individual to bring out the ingenuity in him, to be creative, and not only to be creative, to participate in any economic in around his environment, no matter how little that economic endeavor is very necessary. And for many people on the street too, you have to also watch what you spend your money, because it is very hard to get money. So therefore, whatever you are spending, you should be more critical in what you consume, and you also be critical on any economic decision you are taking.